We were in Maroon Bills, Colorado. We were hiking a lot that day, a lot of uphill. I was struggling, I was dizzy, it was just a hard day.
Struggle. You got a pain, left leg, you gotta press on.
And it was definitely a death march.
Welcome to 3 tips to help your trips. With me, I've got Derek today. Yeah, we've got some good ones.
What's up, guys?
Good excitement, thank you. We're gonna be talking about how to avoid a death march.
Yes.
And there's a lot of ways, and we're just gonna scratch the surface, and that is okay. Derek, how would you define a death march?
I think a death march, well, my death march was something that was mentally overwhelming, physically overwhelming, and just, it really challenged me to the max. And so I think...
Okay, that sounds like every day for you.
That's just that one day, actually.
Okay.
And being your friend is the other thing. So, yeah.
All right, so we each have 3 tips.
Yeah.
You go first, and please
Okay.
comment below who's got the better tips. All right, first one.
Tip number 1 for how to avoid a death march is plan your food. Plan your food. Make sure you didn't bring too much food. You're gonna have extra weight. The more weight you have, the harder it's gonna be. So plan your food out per day. Maybe set it out before you pack and have it out. Snacks, dinner, breakfast, if you have that, and all that stuff. Plan your food.
Okay, this one sounds like a good tip, like regardless of whether it's a death march or not. I think you want to have, just like this is my food for day 1, day 2, day 3. So what's different about this?
Well, if you know you're gonna go on a hard trip, a lot
Yeah.
of terrain, a lot of uphill,
Yeah,
it's very important to make sure you have all your food planned out. And like, as opposed to like if we're going on a mellow 3 or 4 day trip and you
Yeah.
can get away with like just throwing some extra food in there, a really difficult hike, you should plan your food so you can minimize your weight to the max.
if you know it's difficult ahead of time. The challenge for that one is that typically when you're going on the more challenging hikes, good, is that you're gonna actually want to bring more food because you're burning more calories. So
Right.
it's-
Compensate.
Yeah,
Right?
something that's
So-
just something to think about. I'm not sure if that one is going to be good for somebody who's new. Somebody who's more experienced, I think that's a better tip. What does that mean?
I don't know. My second tip is to understand your pack weight. Try to keep your pack under 30 pounds if you can. Because if you go out and you don't know the terrain that you're hiking on, you could have a lot of uphill, a lot of difficult terrain that will make your pack feel so heavy. And if you just threw things in there, it's gonna feel really bad on your back and your shoulders after a short amount of time.
So getting your pack weight under 30 pounds, I think, is a great tip. That's just a great tip in general if you're going on like a 3 to 5 day backpacking trip. Easier said than done. Would you agree?
Yes, 100%.
I think we should spend more time unpacking this in a different episode. So we'll get to that later.
And tip number 3, and I honestly think this is a very important tip, is to how to avoid a death march, is to go with people that you really enjoy hiking with. There's nothing more draining and negative for your mind than being around people and hiking with people that you just don't get along with, you don't talk with, you don't have fun with. So try to pick a group of people or a partner that you really enjoy being around out on the trail.
Okay, this sounds like a Captain Obvious one, but it's actually a lot harder than you think. It took me years and years to refine my group. I want to say, 6, 7 years before we really found a crew where we all enjoyed each other and had a good time, great company.
Took them a long time to find me.
It did.
You know?
It
I mean,
did.
Ideal.
Yeah.
So
And still not sure if you qualify. Yeah.
we'll get there.
So yeah, it's okay to kind of bring different people and determine if that's a good fit or not, and then reject them if they're not, right?
Yeah, just don't be their friend anymore.
All right, first tip is from the perspective of the trip planner. We love to bring newbies out on the trail, but when they're new, no matter how fit they seem ahead of time, you gotta make sure they can do the trip. So whether it's an easy trip for you, it might be a death march for them, make sure that it's a shorter trip, it's very enjoyable. There's something at camp that they're really gonna enjoy, whether it's a lake or whether it's just an amazing campfire. Give them something to look forward to.
Okay, so I would agree that your first trip with the newbie should be an easier trip because you don't want to like overwhelm them and
Right.
get them to hate backpacking. I think my first trip was 12 miles. I only brought a fanny pack, guys.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I only got a fanny
More
pack.
to that story for sure.
More to that story. But I had a great time. It was fun. It got me excited about going again.
Right.
I think the jump to the next trip, which was 50 plus miles in a couple of days, was a lot harder. So
Right.
I don't even think I was ready for that, but it definitely sparked my love for backpacking.
Yeah.
So.
So you withstood the death march. And
Yeah.
I was the culprit for planning the death march, which was going to happen. It just didn't necessarily need to happen with Derek. I think it was worth it, though. I think
It was worth it. Yeah, it was worth it.
But not every, has your fortitude.
They don't.
They're not as tough as you. is
What a
you're saying.
find you found in me. What a find.
Tip number 2 is whether you're on a death march or you happen to plan a death march, make sure you know where your reliable water source is ahead of time. That way you have water between sources and you don't dehydrate yourself or your trip companions.
Reliable water source is huge, especially if you're a newbie. You want to make sure you're hydrated and drinking a lot of fluid.
Right.
We've, even as veterans, been on hikes where we had the water sources spread out or it was not good enough to filter and we were dehydrated and out of water. It's not enjoyable at all. So especially as a newbie, water is huge.
I think a lot of people define death marches with like the lack of water, going great distances with the lack of water, and just their energy levels are tanking as a result.
Yeah.
So, if you're the person on a death march and you're just having a really hard time and your trip planner has planned a trip that is just too difficult for you, and you're like Derek, just give up. Just turn back and just go back to the trailhead. Don't wreck the trip for everybody else.
Carl, just give up? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, I plowed through a 50+ miler on my second trip. I mean, I have the you just said I have fortitude.
I know.
I
I
mean,
did
what
say
are you
that, but then ever since then, you're like, can we just do a trip? We're just going like 2 miles and camp, and then have a layover day. And
That's more for your shoulders, though. I'm thinking about you and your shoulders,
Right.
and the pain.
right.
Um,
In all seriousness, though, it is better to send somebody back to the trailhead than to
True.
force them through a death march if you
Yeah.
determine, especially early on, they're really not up for that.
Yeah.
We've been in situations where somebody suffered, whether it's injuries or lack of fitness, and we've ended up dragging them through the trip, and it would have just simply been better to send them right back to the trailhead.
yeah, we regretted that, I think.
We did. So that's it. Those are our 3 tips. Please comment below who had the better trips, Derek or myself, and we would definitely appreciate that. And subscribe if you're looking for more tips to help your trips to make those trips better than they already are.